I never imagined that my life would take such an unexpected turn. Not even in my wildest dreams would I have foreseen this. My name is Clara, and on paper I am that dedicated, faithful woman, the partner that anyone would admire. I lived in a small coastal town, a calm place, where Tomas and I created a peaceful life. The routine was simple, and this simplicity was enough for us. At least, that's what I believed. But when Tomas went to another country to continue his studies, I was left here, alone, lost in a reality that was slowly beginning to suffocate me. The distance, something that I thought we could handle, slowly began to take its toll. At first, we even tried to keep in touch as before. We talked about our days, about how things were going for each of us. But as time went by, the time difference, Tomas' new responsibilities, and the lack of physical presence began to distance us in a way that I had not anticipated. The calls, which were once full of life and conversation, became more spaced out. Messages, which used to be long and detailed, are now reduced to short sentences, almost devoid of emotion. Every time my cell phone rings, I hope it's him. But when I see that it's not, I feel a pang. The emptiness that wasn't there before now grows, taking over every corner of my life. My days are filled with a loneliness that seems to grow with each dawn. What was once routine becomes something heavy. I wake up, go to work, come back home, and the cycle repeats itself. The city, which was once a haven of peace, now feels like a prison. There's nothing new. There's no color. Life has become a sequence of gray days, where the sunrise no longer brings the same hope. And the loneliness. Oh, this loneliness. It's as if it's hugging me tighter and tighter, suffocating me in its invisible arms. I've never felt so alone, so adrift. I try to distract myself, but nothing seems to work. The emptiness inside me grows every day, slowly consuming me. The house, which once seemed cozy, is now too big for just one person. The silence weighs heavily, and I find myself walking through the rooms without purpose, just to avoid standing still. It was in this silent desperation that I began to think of ways to change my life, to fill the void. But how? The city doesn't offer many opportunities. The economy is in crisis, and the few jobs I can find aren't enough to pay all my bills. I find myself stuck in a routine I didn't choose. It's as if time has stopped, and I'm in a kind of limbo, where each day is the same as the last, where each decision seems unimportant. The emotional void that Tomas left, the lack of contact, the distance, all of this creates a wound inside me. And, as this wound grows, I begin to look for something to ease the pain, something that makes me feel alive again. It was a repetition of the previous cycle. My salary barely covered my basic expenses, and each unforeseen event quickly drained the little I had managed to save. At first, I considered getting a second job or even selling something online, but I soon realized that the market is saturated. The competition is intense, and nothing seems to guarantee the extra income that I so desperately need. As I browse through the various options, almost without hope, I start to come across advertisements and testimonials about how social media can be a source of income. The idea of using digital platforms to make money seems both promising and scary. However, desperation speaks louder. Without many alternatives and eager to find a solution, I dive into the world of social media. It is in this virtual universe that I discover something that initially catches my attention: the possibility of making money by offering online companionship. I am not sure how it works, but the promise of financial improvement seems too good to ignore. The need screams, and this drives me to investigate further. I learn about how to create an attractive profile, how to connect with people who are willing to pay just for company and conversations. At first, I feel lost, a little intimidated. It is not something I imagined doing, but at the same time, I feel a growing curiosity. Could this really work for me? Amidst so many doubts, one thing is clear. My situation cannot get worse, and if this is a chance to improve, why not try? It was in this search, in this new experience, that I met Richard. Our first contact took place on one of these platforms, and from the beginning, he stood out. His profile was different from all the others. The photos, the descriptions, everything about him seemed to exude a sophistication that I had not seen before. Richard is a mature, refined man, with a life that seems to have been taken from a movie. Luxuries, travels, and experiences that I had only heard about from distant accounts. He fascinates me in an inexplicable way. What began as a simple exchange of messages soon evolved into something deeper. Over the days, and then months, our communication became part of my routine. At first, our conversations were sporadic, quick, and without much emotional involvement. I did not expect it to be any different. After all, we were two strangers. But over time, the barriers began to fall. We began exchanging photos, video chatting, and soon we were sharing intimate details of our lives. With each new message from Richard, I felt a mixture of anxiety and excitement. His words, his way of speaking, everything about him attracts me in a way that I can't explain. He always seems to be in control, always sure of himself, which makes me feel a sense of security and trust. I didn't even know it existed. The loneliness that once seemed unbearable begins to dissipate a little with each new conversation we have. Over time, I realize that our conversations have become an essential part of my days. I begin to look forward to his messages, counting the minutes until our next exchange. The connection we have formed goes beyond the superficial. There is something more, something that I cannot clearly define, but that keeps me going. I feel that, somehow, we are creating a bond that goes beyond the screens, beyond the virtual. Every day, Richard offered to pay me for every moment we spent online. The more time we dedicated to our conversations and video calls, the more money I earned. But as time goes by, I realize that it is not just a financial transaction. There is something deeper in the way he shows his appreciation. Richard doesn't just send money. He finds ways to show his interest that go beyond material value. Sometimes, without warning, packages start arriving at my door. Carefully chosen gifts, perfumes, luxurious jewelry, elegant clothing. Every detail seems meticulously thought out, as if he knows exactly what will make me smile. These gifts are not just tokens of generosity. They are constant reminders that, even from a distance, he is present in my life. Each box I open makes my heart beat faster. The feeling of being remembered, of being special, grows inside me. These surprises become an important part of what we are building. And it's not just about the objects themselves, but what they represent. Each item carries with it a piece of Richard, a part of his world that he chooses to share with me. Over time, these gestures go beyond physical gifts. He organizes virtual dinners, where he sends gourmet food so we can't dine together over a video call. The idea is simple, but it carries so much meaning. It's as if he wants to bridge the distance, to bring a bit of his reality to me. The other day, he surprised me with tickets to online events that we watched together, sharing laughs and reactions as if we were side by side. The attention he pays to every detail impresses me deeply. He knows that it is these small moments that reinforce what we are creating. Each surprise, each gesture, makes the bond between us grow stronger, as if, even without physical contact, we are increasingly connected. Our conversations become the highlight of my day. No matter what I have done, Richard is the one who truly relaxes. We laugh together, exchange stories, and discuss everything from the simplest curiosities of everyday life to deeper issues. It is easy to talk to him, as if he truly understands me, as if we are in tune in a way that I did not imagine possible for someone I have never met in person. As time goes by, I notice that our conversations go beyond what they were at the beginning. It's no longer just a casual exchange of words. It's something more. There's a growing intimacy, a depth to our interactions that makes me think of Richard in ways I didn't expect. Little by little, I'm starting to realize that I'm developing real feelings for him. Something inside me has changed. It's not just a matter of gratitude for the gifts or the money, but for the way he makes me feel seen, important. Richard has become more than just a distant figure. He now occupies a space in my thoughts, in my heart. Every new message from him brings a smile, and when we're apart, I miss his presence. Every conversation with Richard makes me feel closer to him. He seems to understand me in a way that no one else does, as if he sees beyond my facade, directly into my emotions. With each exchange of words, whether it's a simple message or a longer video call, I feel the connection between us grow stronger, more meaningful. He has this ability to make me feel important, to pay attention to details, and that's what makes every interaction special. Despite the satisfaction I find in this virtual relationship, I know there is something more to come. There is a next step that I cannot avoid. Richard has already mentioned the idea of meeting in person, and this possibility fills my thoughts. The anticipation of finally seeing him face to face stirs a mix of emotions that I cannot control. While I feel an almost palpable excitement, a part of me is also nervous. What will happen when we leave the virtual world and enter reality? He suggests a nearby city for this meeting. The very idea of meeting keeps me in suspense. I wonder what it will be like when our eyes meet for the first time. Will the chemistry we felt through the screens continue in the real world? The transition from virtual to physical relationship seems inevitable, and as I prepare for this big step, I feel like I am about to enter unknown territory. The excitement of finally touching what was once just an image consumes me, but I also wonder if I am ready to face everything that this may bring. There is a constant anxiety inside me. Richard has become an essential part of my life, but what will happen when we meet face to face? As much as I am excited to meet him in person, I also can't help but feel afraid. Afraid that reality will be different from what we construct online. Afraid that the real world will present us with barriers that we don't face in the virtual world. At the same time, I also feel enormous gratitude. Richard hasn't just changed my emotional life, he's transformed my financial reality. Before I met him, I was struggling to pay the bills, and the weight of my responsibilities seemed to be getting heavier. The gifts, the money transfers, everything he's offered me has taken that pressure off my shoulders and given me a new perspective. It's not just the financial relief, but also the feeling of being able to plan for something beyond the next month. Richard has given me more than I could have ever imagined. He has given me the chance to dream again, to believe that there is more to the horizon than just survival. The impact of everything he has given me goes far beyond material gifts. He has shown me that I deserve to be cared for, that I can be valued in ways I had never considered. Every gift, every gesture, every conversation we have had has been like a brick building something new inside me, a confidence I thought I had lost. Now, as I prepare for this next step, a mix of emotions envelopes me. Excitement, fear, gratitude. I am about to face a reality that, in some way, could change my life forever. Am I ready for it? Will this encounter be the turning point or a confirmation of what we are already building? The future is uncertain, but one thing I know. The opportunity Richard has given me has already transformed the way I see myself and the world around me. With my new financial stability, my apartment, which had always been simple, became a more welcoming place. I invested in new furniture and decorations that reflected this different phase of my life. Little by little, I began to dress differently, choosing clothes and accessories that made me feel more confident and powerful. The way I saw myself changed. My routine also took on a new look. With more free time, I signed up for yoga classes and started participating in cultural events that had previously been out of my reach. I met different and interesting people, and my social circle expanded. My days, which had previously been so repetitive, were now filled with new experiences and encounters that further enriched this phase of transformation. They became an essential part of my routine, a sequence of moments that gave me a sense of freedom that I had not felt for a long time. Each new step on this journey made me believe that I was finally in control of my life. When the time came to meet Richard in person, my heart was filled with a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. We had been talking about this meeting for weeks, and the anticipation grew with each passing day. Richard invited me to spend a weekend in a city known for its luxury and sophistication. It was an invitation I couldn't refuse. The idea of having this experience outside of the virtual world, of finally being face to face with him, filled me with a pleasant anticipation, almost like a child waiting for Christmas. When I accepted, I could already imagine what it would be like, but nothing prepared me for what came next. I arrive at the hotel, a 5-star hotel with an imposing grandeur that takes my breath away. The lobby is a true spectacle. Shining marble, enormous chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, and an elegant silence that fills the space. I feel as if I'm living inside a dream, walking through a place that previously only existed in the pages of magazines or in my most distant thoughts. With each step, the feeling that something grand is about to happen takes over me. Then I see him. Richard is there, in the middle of all that opulence, but what catches my attention is not the luxury around us, but the warmth in his smile. He welcomes me with a kindness that immediately makes me forget the sophisticated surroundings. It's as if, in that moment, nothing around me matters. A mix of emotions overwhelms me. I don't know if it's nervousness, euphoria, or a kind of relief, but I feel an immediate connection, as if all the conversations, laughter, and moments shared virtually are now coming to life. We spent the weekend together, and every minute felt magical. We explored the city, laughing as if we were old friends. The lightness of our relationship surprised me. I never thought it would be so natural, so easy. Every restaurant we visited, every experience we shared, was something I had only seen before in magazines or movies. Places that seemed so far from my reality were now part of my story. Sitting at a table in an expensive restaurant, with dishes I couldn't even pronounce, I looked around and realized how much my life had changed. And, more than that, I realized how different I felt. The sophisticated environment, the people around us, everything was impressive, but nothing affected me as much as the way Richard made me feel. For the first time, I was experiencing what it was like to be cared for, to be treated as someone who deserved the best. The feeling of being valued, of being in a world that previously seemed inaccessible, was overwhelming. As we walked through the city streets, window shopping and sipping coffee in fancy places, I can't help but reflect on how much this weekend is a break from my reality. Every place we visit makes me feel like I'm touching something unattainable, and yet at the same time, everything feels so right, like I belong there. Richard's attention to detail, his way of making every moment special, constantly amazes me. It's not just the luxury that surrounds me, it's the way he makes sure I feel comfortable, wanted, special. The mix of emotions continues to haunt me. There are times when I wonder if all of this is real. The scenery around us, the laughter, the casual touch on my hand as we stroll, it all seems like something out of a fairy tale. And at the same time, I feel a kind of uneasiness deep in my chest. Am I ready for what this means? Will this transition from virtual to real transform what we have into something even greater, or do I risk losing what we have built? Every experience shared with Richard brings me closer to him. He has a way of making everything seem special, of transforming the ordinary into the extraordinary. When he looks at me, it is as if he sees something in me that I have not seen in a long time. There is a strong connection, but also a growing fear that, by the end of this weekend, something might change. For now, I allow myself to enjoy every second, every smile, every touch. The city, which was once just a backdrop, is now part of our story. Attending exclusive events and visiting iconic locations made me feel like I was part of a movie. Every place Richard took me was filled with a special magic, something I could never have imagined before meeting him in person. Every detail, every shared experience, transported me to a universe where, suddenly, I was the protagonist. Walking alongside Richard, I felt like I was living a life I never thought would be possible for me. During those days together, the realization of how much my life had changed began to crystallize. Everything we had built in the virtual world now took shape before me. materialized in real memories, touches, looks, and smiles that could never be captured on a screen. Richard showed me a side of life that I had completely ignored, a side that made me reflect on the kind of future that could be mine. That world of luxury and unique experiences seemed distant, but at the same time, it was now part of who I was becoming. Richard's generosity was impressive, but what really touched me was the deep bond that was forming between us. The feeling of being valued in such a sincere and intense way was something new to me. He didn't treat me as someone he wanted to impress with expensive gifts or dinners, but as someone whose time and company were genuinely important to him. It awakened something inside me, a sense of belonging and security that I hadn't experienced in a long time. Our physical encounter solidified everything we had built in the virtual realm. The chemistry between us was palpable, and it transcended the screen in a way that made me believe that this relationship was so much more than I had imagined. Every conversation, every gesture shared that weekend was a natural extension of what we had already experienced online, but now with a depth that only physical contact could bring. I felt as if I was discovering another layer of myself through this connection. With him, I felt complete, as if all the parts that had been missing from my life were now finally in their rightful place. The intimacy, the look in their eyes, the touch of their hands, all these little moments made me realize that there was something stronger between us than just an exchange of messages or video calls. As the days went by, I began to realize more clearly that my life was no longer the same. What once seemed like a distant dream was now coming true before my eyes. The financial stability that Richard brought into my life had already been transformative, but it was the emotional stability, support, and attention he offered me that really allowed me to envision a different future. He helped me see that there were other ways to live, other possibilities for my tomorrow. With each new experience, I found myself reflecting on what I wanted for myself from now on. It wasn't just about the money or the travel, but about the feeling of being cared for and being with someone who made me feel important. That weekend was a turning point for me. He made me realize that I didn't need to go back to my old life, to that reality of uncertainty and limitations. Richard gave me a new perspective on what it meant to live, and that, more than any gift, was what kept me going with him. And so, as the weekend wore on, I realized more and more that what I had with Richard was more than just a chance to escape the monotony or make money. It was a profound transformation, a journey of self-discovery. The luxury around us, the laughter, the quiet moments we shared, all of it was leading me down a path where I could finally be the version of myself that had always been there, waiting to emerge. Richard wasn't just a sophisticated man. He was the key to a new chapter in my life. And that realization gave me a kind of strength I never thought I would have. While I knew my relationship with Richard was complicated and full of dilemmas, I couldn't deny that he had opened doors to a life that had previously seemed impossible. As the weekend came to an end and I said goodbye to him, a mixture of sadness and gratitude washed over me. He had changed my life in ways I never imagined, and now the future seemed full of new possibilities. On the other hand, my relationship with Tomas was slowly deteriorating. The lack of communication created an invisible barrier, while my connection with Richard grew stronger. The distance between Tomas and me grew slowly, almost without me noticing, but it was inevitable. Every moment with Richard made me cross boundaries that I had never planned. The infidelity was not something premeditated, but the result of a growing attraction to Richard and the emotional void that was forming between Tomas and me. The connection that once existed with Tomas disappeared, leaving me vulnerable to a situation that I never thought I would experience. The breaking point came one unexpected day, when Tomas called me, with unusual seriousness, trying to reconnect. The conversation started out casual, but soon changed tone. He started asking me more direct questions about what I was doing and how I spent my time. There was something in his voice, a mix of insecurity and distrust, that made my stomach knot. I tried to dodge the questions, but my vague answers only increased his distrust. The tension was clear, exposing the distance between us, a barrier that not even words could cover. Desperate, Tomas decided to act on his own. He reviewed our social media conversations, looking for answers. And what he found was much more than he feared. Messages and photos that made clear what was going on between Richard and me. Those intimate exchanges, details we had shared without thinking, now served as irrefutable proof of my betrayal. When Tomas confronted me, the pain and disappointment in his voice were undeniable. His words were like knives, piercing straight to my heart as he tried to understand the truth about Richard. I tried to explain that my relationship with Richard was born out of an urgent need and an unexpected connection. But I couldn't hide the truth. The conversation became heated, and Tomas, feeling betrayed, reacted with a mixture of anger and sadness. He gave me one last chance to defend myself, but words seemed insufficient in the face of the damage done. After that confrontation, our relationship was irreversibly broken, and Tomas decided to end it all. Alone, I carried the weight of my choices. The relationship with Richard, while financially rewarding and emotionally intense, was fraught with pain and guilt. My time with him introduced me to a new world, full of vibrant experiences I had never imagined. But at the same time, it forced me to face the emptiness I had left behind. The loss of what I had with Tomas was a constant shadow, reminding me of what I had sacrificed. My life changed dramatically. With Richard, I found financial and emotional stability that had previously seemed impossible. Everything with him seemed safe and promising. However, this security contrasted with the knowledge that my betrayal of Tomas had destroyed what we had built together. In my memory, everything became fragmented by guilt. Although the future with Richard seemed full of possibilities, the weight of remorse for having destroyed a significant relationship never left me. With each step I took, the shadow of my past decisions reminded me of what could not be undone. The life I was trying to build with Richard, no matter how stable it seemed, always carried this emotional baggage. Richard tried to envision a path for the future, but I knew that this path would inevitably be marked by reflection and deep regret for having hurt someone who had once been everything to me. Thank you for following this moving story. If you liked it and want to see more stories like this, subscribe to our channel. We look forward to sharing more inspiring and moving stories about infidelity in the next video.